out of one pot. It comes out in a very interesting fashion.
The musical gumbo Branford Marsalis is referring to is called Buckshot Lefonque. That's a title borrowed from a pseudonym Cannonball Adderley used, the jazz great, who used to moonlight on R&B and pop records in the 50s. Branford Marsalis was born in New Orleans, son of piano great Ellis Marsalis, elder brother of trumpet great Wynton. Now, when it comes to music, you can't pin down Branford Marsalis. He's played it all, and some say he's mastered it all. And despite his Grammys and his former job as musical director for The Tonight Show, Branford is very tuned in to the reality of the street. Rhapsody's Tracy Melcher spent some time with Branford when Buckshot Lefonque visited Toronto.
Jazz music came from the same streets that hip-hop came from. It's just that we wore suits and didn't spend all our time talking about the street. But I mean, jazz music was invented in whorehouses in New Orleans. Or that's where it thrived. It wasn't necessarily invented there, but that's where it thrived. So you can't get much more street than that.
So do you think a project such as this would help people focus more towards, say, taking up jazz as opposed to always gearing themselves towards dance or hip-hop influenced music?
Because kids are kids, and kids want to dance. You know, in American society, books on philosophy don't sell, just books, not, you know, fiction. Fiction is what sells. I don't think that this record is going to make those kinds of inroads, those kinds of waves, and everybody's going to run up and start doing that. That would be naive. But the reason I made this record is because I have an appreciation for those other sounds. And it's my interpretation of those sounds. I was definitely not trying to make a hip-hop record or trying to make a commercial record, because if I were, I would spend more time imitating what I hear on the radio. We live in such a temporary society that today this is a great video, the next day there's another one out. But it's like Charlie Parker makes a record in 1955 that's considered a classic, and it's 1995, and it's still a classic. Aerosmith made a video last year that was a classic, and this year no one is talking about it and no one is playing it. So it's not the same. It's we live in a very disposable society these days, and I don't think that kids' lives are really changed. Videos are great marketing tools, and the people that make the videos are doing very creative things with them. But I think that the nature of the pop industry is here today, gone today.
And in both that video and in Breakfast at Denny's, you always put yourself in the role of an observer. Why is that?
Because that's what musicians are. Good musicians are observers. Kenneth Clark is an English historian. He wrote a book called Civilization, and he was talking about Western civilization, and the best way to observe civilization is through the culture, through the music and the paintings, because historians lie. Essentially is what he said. Historical perspectives are just that. They are based on one's personal opinions and personal beliefs. But when you see a Rembrandt or you see a Renoir or a Van Gogh and he's painting an area of the southern coast of France or an area of Holland during the 18th century or during the 19th century, that's what it was. There it is. I mean, that's exactly what it looked like. That's why when we have movies that take place in certain periods, there's always piles of music from that period to reflect the time, because music and art are the ways that we can really tell, you know, what was really going on. Jazz music was invented and developed in an era where people were constantly concerned with elevation of themselves and elevation of their art form. And I think that a lot of people now, because degradation is actually more in vogue, it's more popular, they are actually not particularly interested in elevation or elevating their craft or elevating themselves. and there's a tremendous amount of money. I mean, America's always loved their gangsters. Be it Jesse James or, you know, Babyface Nelson or Al Capone or Dr. Dre. Don't matter. America loves their gangsters. If people are really concerned with this, and most people aren't, most people are only concerned with the peripheral imagery, and then they move on with their lives. They're just interested in stereotyping and categorizing. But if people are really interested in dealing with that, they need to deal with the reality that jazz music and hip-hop music come from the same place.